your daily dog. When you come out here and you're used to one certain set of ways. They get up at 4:45, be a PT 6:30, be a formation at 9, get off work at 1700, all that kind of stuff. But out here, it's really a 24/7 event. You know, you're asked to do things that are way outside your realm and scope of capability. And then when you accomplish those things, you get a greater satisfaction of. I've been to, I did 2 deployments. Iraq in 07, 08, and I just got back from Afghanistan last year. And I can't recall anything being as difficult in that 27 months as what I just experienced in the last 7 days. And I mean that, you know, we dealt with stuff in a combat-related situation, but then you come over here and you realize how much good stuff we have just surrounding us, right, and things of that nature. Because over there it's just nothing but usually negativity. But then you come out here and you bond with folks, you talk to them, like I said before, you get to know one another and all this kind of stuff. And you build long-lasting relationships, you know, whether it be through, you know, some resiliency training or just spending time on the trail with one another or just going out and, you know, hey, this is kind of cool. You know, you don't see this stuff there. This is unreal that the Army would even consider doing something like this. And the folks that put this together in the place where we are, it's just awesome, incredible. Best experience I've had in the military.
So in last July, I was diagnosed with PTSD. And I asked myself, how does a tough Army guy spend 26 years of his career, since my entire adult life essentially, a guy who grew up in San Francisco, and has been around the world doing really crazy things, leading soldiers, following soldiers, how do you develop PTSD? Because that's not something that we want to have, that's a stigma. In the military culture, it's a weakness. People with PTSD don't get advanced in the ranks, they're told to leave. I remember when my psychologist told me just a few weeks ago that I have an option for her to click a button on a computer, and that would end my career, because I might not be able to deploy again. And it's tough, and I think back to how did this happen? And for me personally, a lot of it has to do with human suffering, which is something that's common with all of our soldiers that currently serve in the Army. You deploy, and you see things that are just not quite right. I've recovered bodies in Baghdad that had the heads removed and dog heads thrown in their place and dumped into a Shia neighborhood to scare off the people that are living there. That's not normal, and that's an image that you carry with you. So in about 2007, I started to have, flashbacks and difficulty sleeping. I would be triggered by the sound of a helicopter or the smell of diesel, and it began to really interfere with my life. So during my last deployment in 2011, I stumbled across a website, and it was Outward Bound. And I thought, oh, that's really cool. They had a veterans program. They'd actually fly me somewhere and let me do something cool. And I grew up backpacking, and I always liked that. I just didn't do much of it after I joined the Army. So I convinced a couple of my friends, and we went to Minnesota in March of 2012. And we went dog sledding. Who goes dog sledding? 3 months before this, I was in southern Iraq trying to close things out, and now we're sleeping on frozen lakes and dealing with dog personalities, which is probably the most challenging part of dog sledding. And since I am a leader in the Army, it intrigued me that this experience completely changed how I felt. I slept like a rock every single night. It was amazing how this transformed my own outlook. I had still not gone to see a psychologist. There was still that stigma. But all these guys that were on that trip were veterans too. They all had the same issues. And we talked, and we developed these peer relationships. And I thought, this is really cool. Why doesn't the Army do something like this? So I went home, and my curiosity caused me to get into a master's program to try to understand why this works. And I looked at what the Army looks like. And I know that, this is just a chart, but what that line that shoots up to the top shows is soldiers diagnosed with a mental illness. And in 2002, oddly, the same time we started going to Afghanistan and Iraq, the number of diagnoses started to increase. And these are only the guys who are willing to come in and say something. To me, that indicates that there's a problem. So I made some friends at Outward Bound. I met a man named Stacy Bear who runs the Sierra Club's Mission Outdoors. He connected me with a guy named Chad Spangler who runs Outward Bound's Veterans Program. He connected me with a guy named David Seinfeld who studies this type of stuff. And between us, we came up with a way to give something to the Army that they can do on their own and create that same experience. That they can sustain with their own dollars, doesn't involve a contract, meets all these crazy legal and ethical constraints. And we did it in a way that we can train the senior leaders in a unit how to do this themselves. So it could be a peer-led type of event. And we did this in Southwest Texas, in the Jeff Davis Mountains. If you don't know where that is, it's about a 2-hour drive just north of Big Bend. It's a beautiful part of the country. So we take him out there and we put him through what I've come to see as the Outward Bound process. And we allow them to discover some stuff about themselves. The young man who spoke at the beginning had just completed the first week he'd ever gone backpacking in his entire life. He went rock climbing, canyoneering, bouldering. He had a great time. That was the impact we were looking for. This January, we will send our first group of peer-led students out into this woods. And the Army is actually considering this to be official training. So nobody has to take vacation, and it doesn't cost any of you guys going to die. Thank you.